June 11 of 2026, in room 538, Dirksen Senate Office Building, Washington, D.C. Senator Elizabeth Warren's committee sent Jensen Huang a formal written invitation. Come to Washington, sit in front of this committee. Answer under oath, where are your chips? Not where did you sell them, where are they physically located right now, in which country, in which data center, plugged into which server rack. Jensen Huang didn't get on a plane to Washington. He sent a staff member in his place. And for the senators who need an answer, he had a counter-offer. Fly to California instead. His team will give them a guided tour of Nvidia's campus. A tour, not a testimony. The most powerful chip company on earth just told the United States Senate to look elsewhere. We need to understand why he could do that. Why no lawyer stopped him. Why the stock price didn't move the next morning. The answer isn't about Jensen Huang's confidence. It's about a supply chain that had already made the question unanswerable on purpose. Here comes to May 13, 2026. Kappa Research published a forensic audit. Nvidia's public filings showed direct China say at effectively zero. Clean, compliant, every export document in order, except Kappa analysts didn't check the public filings. They traced the subsidiaries, the intermediary companies, the cloud orders that touched Chinese capital before arriving at Nvidia's revenue line. The number they found is that more than 20% of Nvidia's entire compute revenue that year had originated from China, a country that was supposed to be completely blocked. Officially zero, but the revenue is actually 20%. 18 days after the report landed on Wall Street, the Department of Commerce issued an emergency directive. On a Saturday, they didn't wait for Monday. Every financial journalist asks the same question. How do you move billions of dollars in restricted American hardware across a border that is supposed to be closed? You don't need satellites. You don't need government contacts. You buy a hairdryer and you get to work. On May 2025, Washington deleted one rule. The AI diffusion rule was a tracking framework. It followed advanced chips after they left the factory, not just where they were sold, but where they ended up physically. Without it, a chip sold legally in Singapore could be on track to Shanghai the next morning with no official record of the move. One deletion brought 1 year of darkness. Think of it this way. Imagine a nightclub with a strict guest list. Your name is banned at the front door, so you buy a ticket under your friend's name. Your friend walks in, then your friend passes the ticket back to you through a side window. The nightclub records a legal entry. Your name never appears, the system shows no violations. That friend in this story was Malaysia and Singapore, and a cloud company called Megaspeed that almost nobody outside a federal investigation had ever heard of. Megaspeed was registered in Singapore as a cloud computing provider. When investigators checked its corporate origins, they found it had been created in 2023 as a direct offshoot of a Chinese state-owned gaming company. Megaspeed needed a local operating arm in Malaysia. That company was called Speedmetrics. Speedmetrics then pledged the entire corporate assets to borrow capital from a third entity called Apex Enterprise Solutions. You're probably asking where Apex got its money. The answer is Alibaba. A staggering capital of $4.2 billion. Now, Chinese capital, Malaysian address. With the funding locked in, Speedmetrics placed a hardware order worth $4.6 billion. $4 billion of it came from a company called Ivory Systems, an official, certified Nvidia manufacturing partner, publicly endorsed by Nvidia to build the physical server systems that house their chips. Ivory Systems is one that owned by Chinese government. We were not watching someone hack into Nvidia's supply chain from the outside. The inside was already part of the operation. You might think physical inspections would catch this. Regulators don't just check paperwork. They show up in person and verify the hardware is where the documents say it is. Speedmetrics leased space inside a real data center in Malaysia, a Bain Capital facility called Bridge Data Centers. When compliance auditors arrived to confirm the chips were present on Malaysian soil, they walked into a room of server racks, lights blinking, fans running, every rack exactly where the floor plan said it would be. Except, the racks were empty. The actual Nvidia GPU hardware wasn't there. It had already been shipped to China. What those auditors inspected was a room of hollow metal boxes, chassis with no computing power inside them, a stage set built specifically for the inspection visit, and taken apart at the moment the auditors left the building. Compliant on paper, gone in practice. Megaspeed wasn't the only operation running this method. In March 2026, the Department of Justice unsealed a federal criminal indictment naming Wally Liu. Wally wasn't an outsider. He was the co-founder of Supermicrocomputer, one of the companies that physically builds the server systems Nvidia chips go into. He had spent decades inside the industry. He had relationships with every major hardware distributor in Asia. He had the kind of assets that can't be purchased. It had to be earned over years. Federal prosecutors said he used all of it to run a $2.5 billion smuggling operation through a Southeast Asian shell company called Obon. The hardware moved through his corporate network. His warehouse workers handled the final step. They used commercial hairdryer to heat the server chassis until the tracking label peels off the metal, erasing the origin before the boxes crossed the border. $2.5 billion in restricted American computing hardware. Identity removed with a bedroom appliance worth $20. Wally built his career making the global AI supply chain function. In 2026, federal prosecutors said he had spent years making part of it disappear. Shutting down the gray market hurt Nvidia directly. Over 20% of compute revenue gone. But here's what the shutdown actually revealed. That revenue wasn't padding a healthy business. It was covering a hole that Nvidia's own biggest customers were quietly digging. Nvidia's customers, Nvidia's exit. The four companies that generate 61% of Nvidia's total revenue are Google, Meta, Microsoft, and Amazon. Between them, they run the data centers that power cloud storage, email, video gaming, social media, and nearly every AI product we use. For years, they had no real choice but to buy Nvidia chips. Nothing else was fast enough to train large AI models at the scale they needed. That window is closing. Imagine your factory's electricity bill is your single largest operating cost. Someone offers you a generator that permanently cuts that bill by 60%. You don't hold a strategy meeting, you order the generator. That's the exact calculation these four companies are making right now. Google has been building its own chips, called TPUs, for nearly a decade. Amazon is booking production capacity for its own chip called Trainium. Meta is rolling out custom silicon it calls MTIA. Each of them is engineering the same exit. Replace Nvidia's hardware inside their own data center with chips they design and own themselves, cutting the cost of running each AI task by 50 to 67%. The purpose of the gray market was to quietly fill the revenue gap while these four companies built their exits. The gray market is now gone. The exits are still being built. June 9, 2026, Waco, Texas. A startup with 11 employees filed a legal complaint that could physically freeze Nvidia's most important hardware at the American border. The company was called Socket. Most people in the hardware industry had never heard of it. What Socket claimed was specific: the networking components that connect thousands of Nvidia chips into a single working system. The switches, the processors, the connectors were built on technology that Nvidia took without paying it. You might think one patent complaint from a company nobody's heard of isn't a serious threat to a $5 trillion corporation. But it is. A single Nvidia chip can train a large AI model on its own. You need thousands of them running together, sharing data, passing results back and forth thousands of times per second. The hardware that coordinates all of that is a specific set of components Nvidia developed after buying a networking company called Mellanox in 2020 for nearly $7 billion. Socket claimed Mellanox had been using their patented design since 2016 without a license. They are also accusing Nvidia and Microsoft of coordinating to suppress the price of that intellectual property, refusing to pay fair market rates for infrastructure that powers their entire cloud business. If the trade court rules against Nvidia in September, importing those components into the United States became legally prohibited. not expensive, prohibited. And the hardware lawsuit isn't the only legal war closing in. May 2026, a federal judge in California refused to dismiss a class action lawsuit brought by others who discovered their books had been used to train Nvidia's AI model without permission. The court ruled that copyright violation happens at the moment the data is consumed, not when AI generates its output. Nvidia didn't just train the books. They built automated tools inside the enterprise software that helped corporate clients download and process the same pirated material to train their own models. The judge ruled those tools had no other purpose. Every corporate client who ran those tools now shared their legal exposures. Nvidia's enterprise software didn't carry legal risk just for Nvidia. It distributed that risk to every company that used it. Jensen Huang started fiscal year 2026 as the most powerful person in the technology industry. He announced deals that moved financial markets the same afternoon they were signed. He flew between capitals shaking hands with heads of state. He refused a Senate subpoena and offered bidding tour instead, and the market didn't punish him for it. That's how untouchable this company looked from the outside. Public story, private reality. The gray market pipeline that was quietly generating over 20% of compute revenue has been shut down by federal raids across Southeast Asia. The same warehouses where workers use their hairdryers to strip tracking labels off hardware worth billions. The four cloud companies that hold 61% of total revenue are each building their own chips to permanently cut Nvidia out of their data centers. The networking hardware that makes the flagship AI system function is now inside a federal trade complaint that could ban its import entirely, and the enterprise software division built tools that handed legal liability to every client that ran them. Washington believed an export ban would control who gets access to the most powerful computing technology on Earth. What they discovered instead is that when the profit margin is high enough, the supply chain doesn't read the law. It finds a cheaper, darker route. It does it with hollow server racks, shell companies registered to addresses that don't answer the phone, and hair dryers bought at a warehouse store. Jensen built an empire on one assumption, that nobody could move fast enough to route around him. The supply chain just proved him wrong.